Welcome to the Haven Collective. I'm J.R. Foresteros, and this is the Beacon Bit. Today we're reflecting on John chapter 14, verses 15 through 21. Last week, when we looked at the passage right before this, we were looking at how Jesus makes room for everybody through his crucifixion, which I think is interesting because, again, a lot of us are experiencing, especially right now, with everything going on in the world, a feeling of wondering if Jesus is really with us, if God is really there. And maybe if not with us, then when we look at what's happening in Gaza or in Iran, we wonder, can we really say that God is present in a way that's meaningful and significant? We don't look around and see Jesus. And I think it's important to acknowledge, even as we say that what we ought to be sensing and celebrating is the presence of the Holy Spirit. Because Jesus said, yeah, I'm leaving you, right? He understood that he's not going to continue to be physically present with us in the way that he was before the ascension. And yet he does not leave us alone. So even as we feel like we're orphaned, even as our faith feels more dangerous, a faith that advocates for the vulnerable, that stands up and speaks truth to power in a world where that is increasingly punished, Jesus says that I don't want you to feel alone. That's why I'm sending an advocate to you. And that word, I think, is fascinating because it's essentially the same word. We sort of use it sometimes in our court systems, but a defender, like a public defender, that's what that word advocate means. Someone who will stand with us in the face of even legal oppression and legal tyranny. This is something that the early Christians took very seriously because they were often dragged in front of courts and put on trial for doing things that Jesus called them to do, for caring for the poor, for taking care of the sick, for attending to those who were cast out. And it was their very actions that made them a threat to the system. And so the system would often drag them in to question them. And Jesus said, yeah, this is going to happen to you when you're faithful to me. And that's why I'm sending you an advocate who will be present with you, who will give you words to say, who will be in a very tangible and sensible way with you. So I think it's easy for us to feel alone and isolated, but what Jesus promises us in this passage is that we're not. And I think this is where, again, our spiritual practices that we talked about a couple of weeks ago really come into play. Are we availing ourselves of the methods of connecting with the Spirit? Or is the Spirit present to us and we have our ears plugged and our eyes closed and we're just kind of going la, 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 and then complaining that we don't sense anyone with us? I look forward to revisiting the spiritual practices now that it's been a couple of weeks. And I look forward to kind of processing together what difference they're making in our lives or why we're finding it so hard to engage in them when Jesus promises us that they're the path to liberation. That's what we're going to do in our beacons this week. Until then, grace and peace go with you.